maybe within that year, within that time frame, he did actually like administer heroin to me, and I'll never forget what he said. Don't forget to breathe.
Well, come on, man. You're going to have to give us some details with this because, that's a big deal. You know what I mean? I know a blunt, but you know what I'm saying? But the brother apply heroin. I'm like, hey, man, time out. Hold on. How do we get from here to here? There has to be some type of process or journey or explanation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our show, In the Moment. On this show, we're going to teach people how to enjoy everyday life from a faith-based perspective because there's so many things in this culture that we live in that comes to rob us of our joy and our happiness. We say things like, once I get the house, then I'm going to be happy. Once I get the car, then I'm going to be happy. Once I get the marriage or once I get in this relationship or, once I get out of debt, then I'm going to be happy. And so on this show, every episode, we're going to give you guys the blueprint of how to just be in the moment and enjoy everyday life, no matter if you're on the top of the mountain or you find yourself in a valley. If you find yourself making a lot of money or you find yourself right now not making any money, whether you have a family or not, or married or not, or single or not, we're going to teach you guys and teach all of us really as we just bring our guests in and just really just talk about this, how to enjoy the moment that we're living in, because the moment we're living in is treasure. So before we get started with our show today, I'm gonna give a shout out to my guy, co-host on the show, my friend Diogene Brown. Whoop whoop. He's gonna be asking a lot of questions, and he's a comedian, so it's it's good to have a little comedy relief. You definitely are. He's funny even when he's not trying to be funny. Cracks him up all the time. And I'm really excited, man. We have a great production team that's making this possible. My boy Tori on the cameras. What's up, bro?
Tori.
I said your name right?
I know, but you spaced it out.
It's so funny, man. It took me like 11 months to get your name right because I couldn't say Diogene. I did not. I mean, he said Diogene, and
it's
I'm like,
the way you announce our names. Like you just do too much.
Okay.
Like he's just saying it's Tori, and you're like, oh, Tori.
I mean, I'm trying to make it sound good. So
extra on it.
It sounds great.
He said it sounds great by itself. This Tori's fine with him.
Here's the deal. It's still too vague. Like I'm just going to keep doing
First of all, you just call his name vague.
You're not. Listen. You. No. Hold on. See, look at this. See, you see what they're doing to me? I'm surrounded right now. What I'm saying is that the explanation that you're giving me, it's vague. That's why I don't learn. I couldn't say your name for 6 months in a row.
My name is Diogene. That's understandable.
I was like, how do you say Diogene?
But his name is Tori. That's a very
okay. We're gonna get
3-year-old.
We're gonna get you your name next. Okay.
We're gonna get Tori Tobias Thompson.
Okay.
Tori. Oh, whoa.
But before I get on your name,
I
still got to get on.
I know he was triple T.
Yeah, no, that's you making it a little harder now. So I'm really not gonna say your name. So, anyways, Tori. Is that better?
I just picture his mom. I picture his mom when he gets in trouble saying that whole name. Tori Tobias Thompson, you don't get your butt over here.
All right, my boy Pedro. That's a little more easier for me to say. Last Summer Production. Pedro, did I say your name right today?
Yes, you did.
Yes. Yo, today is really going down. I got one of my guys here, man. Just a phenomenal brother. And just really what a heck of a testimony. He has such a great heart for people. And his story is, for me, I mean, it's like watching a movie. And I had to have him on the show because I really believe what he represents and what he's come out of is going to help so many people in the culture and the times that we're living in. And so I want you guys to get up for my friend, Cody.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Kind of embarrassing, but I'm just gonna do it on camera. This is In the Moment. How do I pronounce your last name?
Carrier.
Okay.
It's actually Cody.
Okay. So you're the one that I actually got wrong. Great. No. If I would have just did it how I've been saying their names, it actually would have been a lot better.
Cody Charles Carrier. That's it. 3 C's.
Awesome.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Yeah. Keep it simple. Awesome, man. Well, Cody, listen, man. This show In the Moment. Talk about everyday life. What do you do for a living?
So what I'm doing for a living right now is I work for a company called Recovery Fit.
Okay.
And what we do is we go into treatment centers, and this could be adults with substance abuse. This could be children, adolescents, anywhere between like 12 and like 16, 18 with multiple mental health diagnoses, anywhere between like autism and like also substance abuse. And so we go in there, we facilitate a group therapy session. We talk about like the principles behind what are known as the 12 steps. And then we do fitness that fits where they are in their stage of their recovery. Sometimes like we'll have athletes.
Wow.
Sometimes we'll have actually the other week I had a girl with cerebral palsy. And so we as a community pulled together and like made a fitness experience happen for this person after like a touching group therapy session. And this is not something that I was particularly seeking. I didn't go to like school for like child psychology to end up in this moment.
Yeah.
But it was a blessing that like I really found myself in like after I had surrendered to like, the way things were going. So
well, listen, man. Look, you already getting deep in this, and I'm already knowing where we're going with this. You know, so you pretty much in kind of just a sentence, just for our audience, you bring people through the process of being addicted to now being able to be healthy and be free.
What I want to do is I want to introduce fitness that's accessible, and I also want to introduce principles and ways of living that's accessible no matter where these people are at.
Okay.
Some people are further along in their journeys when I come into contact with them, but that's basically it. Like you're saying, in the moment, it's like this person can do an actual jumping jack, but this person, they're just doing a sit up. And so we find out where they are in that moment, and we meet them there with the level of fitness that they can be facilitated to.
Got you. So I know that, so you have your passion for fitness, and you also you've been through obviously the program, the AA program and all of that. And I know you have such a testimony of the things that you've overcome. Can you talk about that? You know, I see you today, people look at you and they're like, man, this is a bright young man, you know, has his life together, and
he's in shape.
He's in shape, and, you know, and obviously, you know, you got the aura about you, but you know, you can't judge a book by its cover, because, you know, we could appear a certain way, but you don't know our story, you know? So can you just share just a little bit of your testimony to how you got to this place? Because I believe it's really going to speak to a lot of people.
So absolutely. I'm currently located in Southern California, which is not where I originated from. I have 8 years of sobriety, and thank you. And I do this fitness recovery stuff. So like all of these things are a culmination of a long story. So starting out, if you'd like, we can start from the beginning.
I want to start from the beginning,
all
like
right.
literally like Genesis in the beginning.
All right, in the beginning. So I was born in a small house in.
We go really to the beginning. Okay, Lord have mercy. Okay, my parents' first date was at the movies. They came home, they loved each other, and then the next thing you know,
I was born in a small house.
So I was born in a small house.
Okay, just take it away. Okay,
Roseville, Michigan. So that's in Detroit, in like the city part of Detroit, but we were in probably what's more known as like a white neighborhood. But it was still a little bit rough, at least from what my parents had told me. So in this period of time in their life, like they were still struggling financially. They're trying to figure things out. And my brother and we grew up in a neighborhood where like my mom had taken us to get ice skates, and then we got lessons to do ice skating so that she could get us rollerblades so we could get home from school faster than the kids could chase us.
Oh my goodness.
And that was like their way of keeping us safe, was like, let's just give you skills.
Man, rollerblades.
Rollerblades.
Man, that wouldn't have helped me.
We were going.
I was wondering where he was going with this ice skating thing.
I would have got jumped every day. I'd be like, they're coming, Mom. I'm not getting away. I was tripping over the sidewalk.
It's high risk though. You fall, right? Exactly.
Yeah,
you fall, you hit the curb, and you know others.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the environment like that I came up in. Like their own journey was very challenging. Like Dad was working like 80 hours a week, so I didn't really like know him other than like the Punisher necessarily. Like he'd be the one to like come in and like, you know, dole out punishment for our misbehaviors. And then my mom, she actually had cancer when she was pregnant with me.
Jesus.
And then she had overcome that just to have the birth of me on the heels of the death of her mother, which was her best friend. And then she contracted shingles. So like she fought really, really hard to be there for me. But you know, physically, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
And then my dad was worshiping the God of labor and work, and so truly believed the best way that he could serve his children was just by like working more. You know, so like, oh, my wife's suffering, I'm just gonna work more. You know, oh, my kids are screaming, I'm just gonna work more. And so that was just kind of like the belief system that I grew up in, and came into contact with other kids that were unfriendly. You know, very early on, our neighbors, we had like a neighborhood feud. It was really like a TV show, honestly. Um, my first word was the F word because my dad worked in like a machine shop. So like I was already like a bad kid, you know, like just like that narrative was already spinning
I
up.
thought you were cool that first time you cussed when nobody was around.
So like I don't know, I already was starting to develop like an identity and a narrative about like, you know, struggle, suffering, and like my parents, like they celebrated like the difficulties that they had overcome. Just like, don't you know what we did for you? Like that kind of like attitude, behavior. And so like I then already in the early days began to understand like what I suffer from is my identity, and like that is how I can prove my worthiness by what I can suffer from.
Yeah.
So just like continuing on that narrative, we ended up leaving that neighborhood, getting to like a nicer one. Dad gets a better job, like things started getting set up, but like I wasn't growing in certain areas. Like I wasn't very popular at school. I didn't make a lot of friends. And I remember I would play sports. So like baseball from as early on as you could hold the baseball bat, they got the tee. And I'm trying to hit the ball, but I just couldn't even hit it when I was like sitting still. So like that was my skill level continuously through my baseball experience.
Wow.
So I think it was like middle school by the time that like they had structured the league for baseball, and they put a team together of all the kids with the worst stats so we could like play at the same level. You know, they thought it was like fair and like more egalitarian. But I was but I was the pitcher, so like I leveled up, honestly.
Yeah. So they was giving out like 10th place badges.
They just put us on a piece of paper and here you go.
That's crazy because, you know, when I look at you, you know what I mean? You look like you could have played in Major League Baseball, you know? So
I was not knowing he couldn't even hit one.
Not a single one.
Literally.
We almost won a game one time. They took us out for ice cream for that.
I remember the time when we almost won.
Yeah.
So so all this is happening with your home. This is obviously, you know, I already see the storyline of low self-esteem, you know, insecurity. This is all the things that starts at a young age. You know, these are all the things that starts off in our childhood and grows up. So at what point was this starting to kind of the walls closing in on you, where it opened up the door to something that you could probably take to ease away, you know?
Honestly, so like we're at, like I said, middle school at this point. I've been trying sports. I'm not successful. I don't have any sports skills. I'm not academically talented. I'm not socially talented. So I don't really have an outlet. I did Boy Scouts for a number of years, and I was frustrated by that. They had us do a bunch of arts and crafts, and I was like, I want to do boy stuff. Like, why am I doing like glitter? I remember throwing the plate of glitter at the table. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to join the Young Marines. This program, this ROTC program my brother was a part of. And so like I learned how to like march and talk and move like a soldier, and I was prepared to like serve my country. Like I created this idea that I could have a positive contribution. And even in that, there became politics. And so people who came in after me, they were just a little bit older, they would get the promotion that I worked so hard for. And so this had created a lifetime of me just giving every ounce of energy I have and finding failure and finding shortcomings. So it was very difficult for me to like apply effort and then feel any reward. A life of frustration. And so like 11 or 12, I remember I was like stealing the cigarette butts of my dad's cool cigarettes. I started smoking cigarettes at like 11 and 12.
Wow.
Marijuana shortly after. And here's the thing, like I didn't like it. It didn't taste good. I didn't like the way marijuana made me feel. But I was able to apply pressure and then feel differently. I could put energy in, and then there was an output, a change, a shift. And then I also was able to like interact with other people socially. And the only qualifier was I had to smoke pot with them. Sweet. Okay. You smoke pot also? There we go. I had a social in, and it made that a lot easier. And then also same thing with like alcohol and then like other drugs further on.
So stop right there. So when the early stages of addiction, I mean, it really just started with community. You know what I mean? Like
big time.
You didn't have baseball. The Boy Scouts didn't really work that well. A lot
School
of
didn't work.
arts, crafts, school didn't work. So it sounds to me like, you know, because this is a really good story because in America today, I don't know the statistics. I don't know if you do, but I do know that this generation right now with drugs that's happening, like drugs these days, and in schools, like the access that they have in high schools and middle schools, man, it's on a whole nother level now. Like we're hearing about kids dying because things are being laced in the drugs that they're doing at a young age. This is rampant right now in our culture and society. You know what I mean? But I like this because this gives education to parents and it gives education to people who have siblings and family members that the open door to a lot of this starts with feeling accepted in a place.
Yep.
You know?
And when he was talking about like how he was getting looked over, I think as an adult you can deal with that.
Yeah.
But as a child, that's very difficult to put in something that you work so hard for and nobody gives you your credit. You know, that's very tough for, I think, a child to deal with, especially somebody who's 10, 11, 12 years old. And so I think the process for children is like, what's the point then? Like I did all this work and you guys just overlooked me. So I'm just going to go about my day and go do what makes me feel good or remove myself from the situation. So, you know, did you feel that way?
I was looking for a mechanism of coping. I needed something because when you're an adult, you already have an identity that's formed.
Yeah.
And like my identity at that point was like, no good, can't participate, you don't qualify, like go sit over there. And so like with drugs and alcohol, the qualifier was using it. It did not require any skill to do that. So I got into that and I got a lot more friends. I got a lot more involved, especially like with like the different like groups of people that participated in that in my high school. And so like some of those were ethnic, some of those were socio economic, right? So just different groups of people I was able to like interact with. I was just cool with all of them because I participated in this thing. But eventually like it did become difficult and I tried to step away. I tried pulling away from like the substance use because I was not feeling good. Like physically, psychologically, I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to take a little bit of a break.
Was this something that you were doing like how many times a day? Was it just weed? It was like what
I mean, it was a daily practice. You know, whatever I could get my hands on to alter my psyche. And so like I was growing marijuana in my backyard. We were dealing marijuana, so like selling drugs and all that. And I can't remember like the inflection point, but there's a moment where I was like trying to back away from it. Like I cut my long hair, like I started taking this weightlifting class in high school. And this was the first time I could apply force and energy to a thing and the outcome I could have a victory over. But there was no trophy. There was no team. It wasn't like skill based or related. It was literally just like, if you're willing to put in the effort and the time, like you will have a reward. I could actually have a sense of control over not just how I felt in this moment. Because like, of course you go to the gym, like you feel good, you get that pump, like you're on it, you're live, right? And then on top of that, like I could strategically plan outward. So now I had control over my present, I had control over my future. And this also invited me to an entirely new social structure. So now like all the people who were like looking down at me because like I was like the druggie or because I was like the loser, like now I'm the jock. So I'm like chilling with the jocks. And it turns out like the jocks are actually way nicer than the kids I was rolling with anyways. I was like, oh, we thought they were the mean kids.
That
like,
was me.
nah.
That was me. I was really nice. You know, I was
This guy swears he's an athlete.
You know, I met him playing basketball and crossed him over, and he's still mad about it. Anyways, keep going.
How's your ankle? So this is a new stratosphere for me.
How's my ankle?
So like, here's another thing. Finally, I could break into that could provide that sense of community, that sense of purpose, a sense of relief, a sense of control. So this becomes a daily practice.
And this is kind of like, you know, when I hear you talk about this, how many of us are not getting to like the fruit is the behavior, right? The fruit is we try to change behavior. So we focus on trying to change the behavior, but that's the fruit. The root is identity. And so although you can try to mask the behavior, if there's no growth in your identity, then you're just it's a mask, it's a cover up. You're literally sweeping the dirt under the rug, but that dirt is still there. So when you have a fall or a bad day or a bad moment, hey, you're gonna go run right back from being addicted to the gym, and now it's gonna be full-fledged drugs again. And I just feel like there's so many people that have not gotten healing with things in their heart and healing in their mind and things from their past and trauma. And right now we're masking it with working 8 hours a day.
Mhm.
Now we're masking it with trying to be busy, but there's still something there in your identity that if you don't get this taken care of, you're a bomb that's ready to go off
Mhm.
at any bad day. So I just, when you said this is what that brought me to do.
Yeah, I wonder, was when you started, getting into the gym, were you healed at that time, or were you using it as a more positive coping mechanism?
The gym is suffering while you're there,
Mm-hmm.
and I can inflict enough suffering upon myself that I can feel satisfied that I have endured enough to be worthy of the changes that I'm expecting to have.
Steve,
Back to that
that's
belief
deep.
system I was born
Yeah,
into.
Steve.
And so like it was another addictive relationship based off of my origin belief system. That like suffering is the good and the most righteous thing you could do. And so I would go like punish myself in the gym and then get accolades from others because of the way that it looked. And so it was like rewarded by the chemicals. I was rewarded by the social reinforcement, and I was also rewarded by like purpose outcome. But like this hadn't healed anything for me necessarily because there was still a lot of like deep suffering and hate that I was like working out in the gym. But that's not like a comprehension and understanding and an alteration of one's behavior,
Yeah.
right? It's just like, ooh, I'm emotionally processing
Yeah.
this.
Can you? So, are you talking about like self hatred? Is that
Oh
this is like
yeah,
so
yeah.
you're purposely trying to feel the pain, because there's so many people right now that are
Mhm.
struggling with that. They're
Yeah.
struggling with beating themselves up, and they push love aside. We're not able. We have to allow ourselves to go through a certain level of pain. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, man. If I felt like if I had endured enough suffering, then I would finally be worthy of all the things that I was not worthy of earlier on. It could cure me of my, I guess, insecurity, but really like a deep sense of inadequacy that I have felt my entire life. I was like looking for a way to fill that hole that's like
Yeah.
deeper than the identity,
Mm,
but in that like depth of knowing of one's soul.
mm.
And
Did you believe you deserved to suffer? Like there was anything that you did that you deserve, like, to feel this pain?
I would be lucky to feel pain. I'd be fortunate to be able to endure the suffering because like I believe that great men suffered. Absolutely, yeah, because I watched him angry and suffering the entire time. It's like that was my model of like what a strong man looks like.
How much can you endure?
Exactly. And I was always like his way of telling me how much he loved me was look how much I'm doing. Look how much I'm suffering for you.
For you.
So it was like my value was tied up in his suffering.
Yeah.
And so then my value to others was tied up in my own suffering.
And I think that's really big for men today, because men are trying to find their identity, and the idea that you get praised for how tough your story was. Like, man, look how much you made it through. And that's like men wear that badge on their chest when they make it through a tough story, and not understanding that that's not necessarily healthy.
Right.
And a lot of people don't make it to the other end, to be honest. Majority of the time they don't.
And I want to offer an alternative view for those men. I want to be valued by the currency of peace by which I can provide in the moment, right? If
Yeah.
I am a peaceful presence in the room, that's the way I want to value myself today, and not based off of like the accolades I can get from the suffering I've experienced. Because you can be a man from any background, but like if you can be a man that makes women and children feel safe, then I think you can do more for society in that position than as just somebody who is a suffering workaholic.
That's good, man. So I want to continue on in the story. So you're in the gym now. Now you're one of the jocks. Take us what's happening from there.
17, 18, high school obviously wasn't going like great academically for me. So what I would do is I would take college studies so I could knock off an hour of school. My last hour of school was weightlifting. So I would like hit the gym, cut out the back door, head home, have lunch, train again that night, and then I would go to my college class. I found a lot of respite in college classes and studying like further academics just because I felt different about high school than I did like some other like noble end. I was like, oh, this is for a purpose.
Mhm.
Um, So I'm trying to do that at the same time. Like I started working at 13. I was setting banquet halls at like 6 in the morning with my best friend, like putting forks and stuff down on tables. And like there was a keg behind the bar. So we would like sneak around and like grab some beer and like we'd be like drinking beer like 13-year-olds like drunk at this like the golf course. And eventually they called us in the office. They're like, listen, so the beer was low. And so we checked the cameras and you guys are really far away from the age of being able to drink. So I don't think we can have you on the property anymore. So like we got fired from that job. But like I've been working since that point in time, like eventually in food service and in restaurant. So I was working, man, I had this like very toxic relationship at like 18, graduating from high school. I was working at Red Lobster. I was working at Jimmy John's doing delivery. I was at college as well and like going through it.
Yeah.
And so like drugs and alcohol seemed to be a solution to the way I was feeling. We had gone through like some very heavy stuff in our relationship that, you know, a lot of people can get separated over. And so like I was led back to the drugs and alcohol as a meaning to just kind of cope.
Yeah.
Um,
Did it get so bad during this season in your life? You're 18, 19. Did it get so bad where did it start causing pain to your family? Like, was it an addiction like that at this time? Was it such an like? Did you know you had issues, or was it just like, yeah, I'm not really addicted? You know, some people are like, I'm not addicted. I can stop whenever I want to stop. Like,
nobody knew. No one could know because of how hard I worked and for how much I could contribute to others. That was my mask. It was my shield. It was the thing that could protect my using in the way that I needed to cope. And so I held it together for a little bit long enough that I was able to like try to pull out. And there was like this push and pull. I didn't understand addiction. All I knew was that like I felt bad and I used drugs to feel better until I didn't feel good anymore. And I tried to make that stop. And then I could get like a couple weeks away from it. I could gain some distance, get back to the gym, hitting it again, feeling good, get a new job, new girlfriend, this and that, life's going great again. And then like, okay, like you said, like now I'm vulnerable for when things get bad again. And all of a sudden, like I know what to reach for.
Yeah.
And so this kept happening repetitiously as like the drugs got harder. I remember there was a guy named Vince, and he was the first person I used heroin with. And we were driving the car to go get some opiate pills, and he had looked at me and he'd said something. I can't remember what he said, but I remember the words that came out of my mouth was, "I could quit at any time. I'm just doing this like in this moment because the season's very challenging."
well, come on, man, you're gonna have to give us some details with this because you know that's a big deal. You know what I mean? I know a blunt, but you know what I'm saying. You know, but a brother apply heroin. I'm like, hey man, time out. Hold on. How do we get from here to here? There has to be some type of process or journey or explanation. Like, hey man, you ever done heroin before? You know, like how did we get here? Okay, so did you know he had this issue or?
My first love was opiates. I got just like fell in love with opiate pills, like Vicodin back in high school, and like it was a romantic experience. It was like really like very comfortable. But I didn't like really latch onto it till much later when like those opiates became stronger. And so so I'm driving the car, Vince is next to me. I say to him, "Yeah, I could quit anytime." And he just gave me this like this look, this kind of chuckle and this sly grin. Like he knew something that I didn't know yet.
He knew you were addicted.
He knew I was addicted because he was addicted.
Yeah.
And he was much further along than I was. And so like I don't know, maybe a few weeks later, maybe within that year, within that time frame, he did actually like administer heroin to me. And I'll never forget what he said. "Don't forget to breathe." And
That's a hell of a thing to say.
yeah, and I'll tell you why. Because when it comes over you, it's like the most comfortable experience that your brain can produce for you in a world of suffering. My body and my mind had a sense of relief that was instantaneous, and it is so relieving that you could forget to breathe. You don't even feel the sense of needing to breathe anymore because all of your problems have been washed away. And no wonder we spend a lifetime chasing that feeling because we can no longer or ever experience that again. It is only that time.
Jeez.
This is delusion that you will chase forever. And he had lived that delusion and he was aware of the chasing. and he led me right to it.
Man, I mean, that's it sounds like when someone comes to God, you know,
Yes.
and you have this moment where you encounter, first of all, not only is God real, but he loves you. And it's like that same experience, you know, and now you have this peace that you've never had before. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, I need more of this God. I need to know him more. But it's crazy that can be replaced, you know, with the, you know, I'm trying to think of a word, but with the version that's inferior, you know, with a version that is not real, artificial, you know, to give you that temporary thing that you would get from God, but this thing is designed to kill you.
Actually,
you know,
yes.
wow, that's
so
it's pretty deep.
yeah. Rest in peace, Vince.
Yeah,
He didn't make it out.
he didn't make it out. What do you mean?
He died.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diogene.
Yeah.
Appreciate you clearing that up. Okay.
It's true.
What I really meant, what? Rest in peace. I think I get where this is going. He said, rest in peace. He said he died.
He said he didn't make it
Thank you,
out.
man. You cleared that up. Thank you.
He said he didn't make it out. You're like, what does that mean? That's the only thing I could think of.
I mean,
yeah, you can make it out.
Let me get a little more detail. I gotta have details around this guy, man. Like you made it sound like he didn't make it. I'm like, did he not make it in the moment? He showed you the heroin, y'all did it together, and he like, what do you mean he didn't make it? When?
It was later on. So like,
okay.
in this other book that I got sober out of, it talks about that we were like the survivors of like a great cruise liner shipwreck, and we're bound by that camaraderie. But instead of only being bound by that camaraderie, like we are also bound by a common solution, not just a common peril. And so he never reached a solution. He's still like in the shipwreck.
Wow.
Right. And like I had already gone up to California by the time I had found out that he had passed away. And so it just feels like, oh, me and all my friends are here celebrating in California about how we're off the shipwreck, but like, oh, I found out somebody did make it off that ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you, I mean, obviously after experiencing that obviously became your new go-to, I'm assuming.
So that scared me in that moment, actually. And it was a powerful experience. And I continued to fight to get sober. So I had a relationship with this girl who had taken me away from my best friend who was participating in a lot of these drugs and alcohol behaviors. But he had contracted a very rare like blood mutation, much like it's like when your white blood cells start attacking your body and then they start to die. Whatever it was, like he had no more of those white blood cells. And he was just waiting for like a bone marrow transplant from his brother who would not give it to him. So he was feeling like pretty hopeless. And he had made a comment to me about my girlfriend at that time, which was unsavory, to say the least. And him and I had an argument that was just like the most vicious things you could say to a person. I remember knowing he was dying of this disease. I was like, I wish that death upon you. And then I had said later in that argument, I take it back. I hope you survive so you can have to live with the person that you are. I could not imagine a worse curse. And that kind of like hate and anger that came out of my body in that time was like, it was trauma. You know, it was so much trauma to say that to a person that I like love dearly. So then he decided to call my job and tell my job I was using drugs and selling drugs at the restaurant. Call my parents, tell my parents I was using drugs, like call my girl to my girl. So like he outed me. And so I started going to a therapist who helped me a lot in that time. And I had gone to a meeting. It was a 12-step meeting, but not the one that I participate in today. And I didn't really understand what was going on. All I had gathered was that there were other people who had a similar experience as me and that they also could not control their consumption of mind-altering substances. Except hearing their stories of like eating out of dumpsters and like all this crazy stuff. I was like still living with my parents and like working 2.5 jobs. Like, you know, I was still running the show.
You were a functioning addict.
Yeah, I was a functioning member of society because that defined who I was.
Yeah.
That superseded any drug use of mine. So I stayed sober for a little bit of time there, maybe 6 months or something like that. And of course, like the way I run my life is it leads to tragedy because I have all these expectations of like what I believe that my self will can do. You know, believing still that suffering is my value, and then continue to take on more than I can possibly take on, and then needing to compensate with chemicals to constantly manage the way that I feel. I I I just remember like constantly needing Norcos and Adderall and alcohol and just tons of caffeine to get through my days.
Any time that did you ever overdose during this season of your life?
So a little bit later, I believe I would have. I would have had I not found a way to mix chemicals together to keep my heart beating, even though I had fallen out. And so there's
Man.
there's a certain level of um, opium that you will stop breathing and your heart will stop beating because it no longer feels it needs to. It really like slows down your nervous system. And so I would actually combine chemicals. So I would take an upper at the same time as I took the lower, and that would like continue my heart to beat, even though I had gone into that state, and I would be able to pull out of it. Where some people just like they just take the opium and then just fall asleep and they don't wake up.
Man,
Dang.
thank God you were smart.
Yeah,
'Cause you-
I guess so, man. But
Jesus.
I do have a question. This journey,
Yeah.
this whole journey that you've been on so far, was there any thought of God or any relationship or anything like that?
All right, I'll cut to the good part then.
Oh no, no. Because I'm pretty sure there's people that going through all that and they're like, and they may still believe in God. They may still, and they still go through all what you're going through. Were you one of those, or were God just non-existent?
God was an adjacent figure in my life. He was told to me about my catechism teachers and very, very boring stories in my youth. It was basically like, oh, we have to tell you about Jesus. You get confirmed by this church, this is and that. And I was like, I'm 12. I'm not really that interested in like the all powerful creator of the universe. Like, I'm gonna go be a 12-year-old right now. And so like I really like left that in the past for this period of time. So let's say, all right, I'm like 21 now, like working at the
Dang, you only 21 at this time?
yeah. Yeah.
28 maybe?
No. So I'm 21 at this point in this story where I'm working in this nice restaurant and I've been trying to take like Suboxone to taper off with the opium because I couldn't choose not to use drugs anymore. But if I took something that blocked the opiates, then I'd be able to get enough time to like get to work to make enough money to
Wow,
afford.
you said Suboxone. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So Suboxone is an opiate blocker, but you can also kind of get high on it, like when you take it.
Yeah.
And so like doctors will prescribe it to people and they keep them on it for life, much like methadone.
Wow.
And it will actually like go into your bones.
Yeah.
And it takes a really, really long time for it to come out of your body. And you will go through long-term withdrawals. Withdrawal symptoms from opiates include restless leg syndrome. Like your leg is just turning like this for many hours in a row. So the cramps are intense, the chills, sweats, like your digestive tract stops when you're using opium. And so then like all of a sudden like that's starting to get going again and it's incredible intestinal pain. It is just excruciating.
Yeah.
And so like Suboxone's gonna fix this. And then like you'll have to just deal with that like 2 years down the road. So I personally, if I could go back in time, I would not recommend that young Cody take Suboxone because that would have just like it just slowed me down from getting to the point where like I got help. So I'm like trying to like manage the Suboxone and I'm like trying to like go to the doctor. I'm like jumping in some meetings every now and then. I'm like nodding out in the meetings. Like I wasn't really participating in the program. And then there was this moment at this job that I had where I was trying to get this promotion. And what I was doing to get this promotion, I would wake up, I would crush up Adderall, snort that, take 4 shots of espresso, put some alcohol in there to like level me out. And I would get to work and open the restaurant. And then I would work for the next 12 hours. And I would take Vicodin to get through that experience. And then I would get out of work and I would take more Adderall so I could study for the promotion. And I would take Xanax to go to sleep and then just do this daily.
Jesus.
And like that was like how I like stayed normal. I ultimately did not get that promotion. obviously, because I was like shot out, and they just like gave it to the dumb guy. They were like, he's gonna cause less problems, and I lost that job, which I was at that moment. I remember this feeling of despair of just like I was really hoping to like move out and like marry this girl, and like my life was gonna get going because I was gonna get this promotion. So like everything I thought I could do in the world was just crushed. And then I was working this other restaurant part time, and I remember I took 20 Norcos, 20 10 milligram Vicodins. And so, like, if you did, you would die for sure. But like, I took 5 at a time, chomp them up, swallow them, chomp them up, swallow them, until 20 had gone on my body.
Jesus.
And I like looked in the mirror and nothing happened. It didn't even touch me. It didn't phase me at all. I was like, better get some heroin now. It's the best idea I had because I didn't care about anything else. Like the world was just despair for me. So then I upgraded to heroin, and then eventually I was like shooting cocaine and heroin at work just to like get through the day because like that got me to normal.
Gee.
Yes, I'll explain this chemistry later, like why
Okay.
this
Yeah,
matters.
Okay.
Okay. And so like it got really, really bad. And then there was just this one weekend. I had been driving down to Detroit and back up again. I got speed tickets I wasn't paying, so my license was suspended. I wasn't paying for my insurance, so that like I was just bound and ready to get pulled over. So I'm going back up with the cook at that restaurant, and there's this one weekend, it was just pouring rain, and I was like telling my girl, I was like, listen, I need to like take some time, some space, whatever. Like we like broke up, and it was like Notebook sad. It was tragic. She was like jumping on me in the rain, and I was like, no, get off. And then like I like got in my car and like drove off, and like she's like standing in the rain. My parents are like calling her in because like they just like they would have traded me for her in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Right? They like loved her to death.
Yeah.
I drove off, and then on the next morning I was coming up, and I was on my way to work, and I had my drug dealer in the car with me, and he had like a jar full of baggies of marijuana just like sitting in my back seat, and we get flicked. And so he pulls me over, and they separate us, and they find all of my paraphernalia, and they take me back to the station. So like we were on our way to work. This was my last limb, so like I just lost my job at this point.
Yeah.
And then they take me in, and of course, like I talk my way to the handcuffs, because of like the jurisdiction and ethnicity and things like that. And I ended up like getting home. My parents were like, "Where's your car?" I was like, "Oh, I got a speeding ticket. I got impounded. Like I'll just get it in a couple days, or whatever like that." Like not letting them know I just got like arrested for a felony charge at this point, and that they wanted me back. And then my mom was like kind of tripping. The cop called. He was like, where are you at? Like, we want you to come back in. Mom was like, what's going on? So then like I had been like working out my whole life, but for the past 6 months I wore sleeves.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, this is unusual because usually like you're kind of a tool. Like you just want to show your arms off all the time. So she's like, let me see your sleeves. Or your arms. So I pull up my sleeves, and she could see track marks on my arms. And like my little Italian mother just like fell to her knees, like and like wept, and like a sob that was like a wail. It just shattered her.
Yeah.
And then it like broke me.
Yeah.
Like, such like pain to do this to this person I love more than anyone else in this world. So within like a 36-hour window, like I lost the love of my life. I lost the job that I depended on. I lost the car that I was driving, and then I had shattered my family. And then they had said, you cannot stay here any longer. I went through DTs, withdrawals, detox, extraordinary pain. And then I eventually like stole some of their jewelry, and like I rode down to Detroit on my bicycle and ran into my drug dealer, and like I gave him whatever I could. He gave me like a sack, and like I'm in a trap house in Detroit, like scary bad situation, like I don't belong down there, and my drug dealer is looking at me with his 3 teeth.
He said 3 teeth. And you reached a low moment. And
And he was
your drug
like,
dealer got 3 teeth.
bro.
That's it.
And so like I'm like ready to like do my thing at this moment. And like he's like, you know what? You should get your life together. You're a young man, you got a bright future. Like I'm gonna go back to the shelter.
This is in the trap house?
This is in the trap house. And he gives me the dope, and he's like, all right, but you should get your life together. And so
Wait,
like
that does not happen. You're his client.
yes, exactly. Bad for business. But he's like, you should probably, you could go get like a nice girl, go to school, like, work a nice job. Like, you have a big future ahead of you.
God will just meet you anywhere. He will meet you anywhere.
And
He'll speak through the drug dealer that's giving you the like.
I mean, I loaded up and like I did a shot of heroin as he told me, and I was like, yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Keep going.
Get my life together. And like, so I ride my bicycle back up home. At this point, there's no more drugs in my body. Like I'm detoxing again. I'm just like all sweaty. And like I like plopped down to the couch at my mom's house, and she was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "All right, I'm done." And she goes, "Yeah, you are. Get out of my house. I never want to see you again. Get in the truck. Get your bag. Get in the truck. You got an airplane leaving right now." So I no longer had a place to live either. Within 36 hours, everything was gone. I think a lot of addicts, they go through experience where like they lose things slowly. It's a metaphor of like the frog boiling in the water. You've heard this,
Yeah.
right? So like the metaphor goes like you put the frog in the pot of water before you turn the heat on,
So I didn't jump out.
and it doesn't jump out because it's comfortable in the water. And then you just turn the
Slowly
heat
heats
on, and it slowly the water heats up, and eventually it's boiling, and the frog
It's too
doesn't
late.
realize it until it's too late. And so a lot of addicts experience that.
Yeah.
They just threw me in the water. I was out. So I went to California on an airplane. I was get picked up at an airport, drove to Orange County. I went into a treatment center, which I will not name, and it was chaos. Like the workers at that treatment center were not staying sober. They were bringing in paraphernalia, getting high with the clients. It was
My
absolute
goodness.
mess. And so I knew that I wasn't going to get sober there. And like I went to go get sober because I didn't want to use.
Yeah.
I never wanted to use. I never wanted to use drugs. I just wanted to not feel the way I felt.
Mm.
So I met a girl named Miranda, and she was a bad girl. She side of her head shaved, like face tattoos, face piercings, everything, and she had actually died 3 times the week I met her.
Dang.
Narcan, back up, do heroin. Narcan, back up, do heroin. The paramedics were pissed. They're like, you again. And so, like I said, like she was bad, but she liked me. And so her and I went to leave that treatment center to go to another one. And I thought I was going something like Passages in Malibu. I was like, all right, we're gonna go to the nice place now. Like I'm sick and tired of sitting in like this bird cage smoking cigarettes with these other losers.
Mhm.
So we rolled up to a house in Thousand Oaks, and I looked at the driver. I was like, "Were we gonna get some cannolis for your mom? Like, why are we at a house? Like, are we going to a treatment center?" He goes, "Nope, this is it. Get out." And I walked in, and I had been eating like top ramen and egg whites for like 3 weeks because they didn't like have good food at this treatment center. It was like a prison. There was like in that treatment center it said hotel, welcome to Hotel California, a place you never leave. So I walked in and there was this like Thanksgiving feast on the table. It was like big old turkey legs and asparagus and mashed potatoes and like people sitting around like laughing, having a good time. I was like, this is
You're like,
the opposite universe
what is going on?
of where I came from. And like I was believing for Passages, but I got something totally different and I was way cool with it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't need crystal chandeliers, man. I got some good food here. So that place was really cool to me. And I had gotten to the next phase, PHP, which is like an inpatient, outpatient thing where like you might get your phone a couple hours a day. And so like I started looking for places to go afterwards. I had a job lined up at a restaurant in Beverly Hills. I was going to take off. Miranda had already left back for New Jersey at this point. And so like my like ride or die, like she left. And so like I had all these plans, and the owner of the rehab had sat me down, and they were just like, "We know you're leaving. We know you want to leave. We want to make you an offer. Just stay. We'll give you a bed. You can have clothes, food, transportation, anything you need." And like the guy's son like had a restaurant. It's like, "I'll get you a job. Like, don't worry. Like, you get everything you need. Just have one condition." And I was like, what is it? It's like, just work the 12 steps. Really, like your life depends on it. And I need you to take other men through the steps. And I was like, all right, whatever. I had no idea. I had no idea that Miranda had just died. And I was riding on her insurance. They didn't take my insurance.
So when they told you this, they knew that she had just died and you still didn't?
Correct.
So you thought it was just your lucky day, like,
I also didn't know they weren't taking my insurance. I thought all this was paid for and that I deserved this treatment. I come out later, I've been there for a year, and they basically like paid for a year of treatment in therapy for substance abuse, which is like $100,000, like easy.
does this happen to people? I mean,
People get scholarships.
but I mean, like, just they're just everything taken care of, like life is taken care of. Free.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. People get scholarships into good programs like this. They were not looking to make money. They
But
were
something like this for you, this has never happened before.
no. You remember, like, I believed suffering was how I got to deserve things. And this thing was being handed to me, no suffering required. And that was my first introduction to a deal like that.
Take me back to, obviously you got really close with this woman named Miranda.
Mm.
You've already lost some people in your life. You've already, you're coming out of a tumultuous season, and family, kicked out of the house, and now you moved to LA now, and now you're here, and obviously the good news is, hey, you could stay here, we'll take care of you. But another person that you are connected to has suddenly died. Like, what happened to you in that space?
I mean, how did I feel?
I mean, yeah, well, because obviously the go-to would have been, it would have been, it would have been what you've done every time.
I was really angry. I was really, really angry. I felt betrayed, but not by her, because I understood that she didn't do that. And I had also made another friend of the treatment center who had gone out. And like you said, like, I've lost some people now. And like, who I was angry at was alcoholism. I was pissed because it had taken my girl, my job, all my future, everything I was ever going to do, and it took my friends. It took everything from me over and over and over again, and there was nothing I could do about it. But there was one thing I could do, and they told me to do it, and that was work the steps.
You know what's so crazy about that, what you said? It kind of sounds like as a Christian, kind of like how we think, how we may be mad at the sin, but we're never mad at the sinner.
Yeah.
Like you started to develop a hatred towards alcohol,
Yeah.
but never towards the person using it. You always loved the person.
Yeah.
You just hated the substance. And I think that's very powerful, and I think that's like really great to hear. And I would like to hear more about how that transformed you, like how that hatred towards that substance changed your life.
And I'm glad you didn't blame God. There's
true.
a lot of people
A lot
have
of
been
people
like,
do that.
because I thought you were like, when you said alcohol, I was like, huh?
That's what made me.
Because I thought you were going to say God,
Me
and
too.
you was like, that was it. I had enough, and I was like, okay, he's about to say God, because this is whatever.
Everybody says
that's
that.
all. We were always going to go to blame God, and you said alcohol. You totally changed the script.
That's what made me say what I said. I was just like, that's literally, it's so powerful, because that's literally the way we're supposed to live our life. Always love people, but the substances is what we dislike, and we try to help people move away from that.
I was already aware of like the battle lines. And so I think, to get back to like your previous question, talking about like, was I aware of God? So like, there was a moment, maybe like 2 months before I actually did get sober. I was on my knees in my bedroom, my fingers in the carpet, begging God to get sober. And I didn't talk to him in a long time, but I was like, God, whatever it takes, just like by this date, some like regular date I had picked out of my head, like just get me out of this, make this thing stop. I want to be totally sober from everything, no substances whatsoever. And the next moment, like, I was like, I'm gonna go to treatment, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. The next, like, I woke up in the morning and like I had like a zombie raised out of bed, walked over to my parents' dresser, stole money off the top, got in the car. Before I realized it, I was on like 10 Mile. I was like, wait, I was gonna get sober today. I mean, I'm almost there. So I had conviction, I had desperation, I had begged and I had pleaded, and it was clear that my will was totally insufficient.
Mm.
But by that date I had asked him to get me sober, he did. And so when I'm in this moment and I'm seeing that Miranda had passed away, I knew what side of the battle lines I was on. I knew that she was a victim of whatever was trying to kill me, that like I was saved from by a force by which I did not understand.
Yeah.
I did not understand God. It wasn't like in a Christian sense. I just knew that there's a force, there's something. And like, I know that I was not able to get me sober, but whatever that thing was got me this far. And that was also why I was willing to just like 12 steps, whatever. Like, I don't think it's gonna work for me, but okay, I'll give it a shot. And it's like, that's all I had was like the faith of mustard seed,
Yeah. Yeah.
tiniest little bit.
So during this time, obviously, I wanted you to be on the show, not just to share your testimony, but to help people, because I think this relates to anybody that has a go-to with addiction. I know a lot of people who struggle with addiction. I went through this for years. None of us ever think we're addicted.
Yeah.
Most of us really don't think we're addicted. We think we could quit anytime. We think, because I don't do it every day.
And that's a feature of it, is that we don't think so. It's the only disease that convinces you that you don't have it.
That is so true.
Diabetics
true.
understand that they can't eat sugar.
Yeah.
They might do it anyways, but they're not convinced of it. Like, they're gonna hit their insulin pump. But
Here's a cake. You know what? I'm not really diabetic today. I can take this. Like, no, like, they're like, I'm diabetic. Why? The doctor told me. You're not gonna argue with it. You ain't gonna think you're not it. It's like, nah, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
But addiction, like he said, works differently. You think.
Yeah, so there's people, we have a segment of the population, you know what I mean, that are in denial about being addicted. But then there's certain people that have come to reality, and which I think is a very powerful first step. And I'm sure that I know that happens in AA, is the confession, like, hey, I am an alcoholic. I had a really good friend of mine who is in ministry actually, and he's had platforms and he's spoken around the world, and secretly behind the scenes he was addicted to alcohol. And that no one knew this, and he had the family, he had the money, he had everything. No one would ever know that this guy behind the scenes was depressed and he was addicted to alcohol. And so he finally, had to humble himself, came out and said, "Hey, I'm addicted to alcohol." And him being a public figure as himself went to to AA. And so. So anyways, I'm getting to the point where how did you walk us through the day to day? Because addiction is so strong. It is hard. When you're stuck in this, it's hard to get free. What was the day to day like?
So day to day, well, the big book says that we have a daily reprieve based upon our works to maintain our spiritual fitness.
Okay.
Like there's a contingency. But the day-to-day activities of a person who is trying to stay sober, whether they are in a 12-step program or not, is going to have a whole lot to do with the redirection of our attention, of our purpose, of our identity, of the driving forces. So I do kind of want to get into like the solution a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was like the founding of this 12-step program, like whatever people's feelings are about 12 steps, was actually back in like 1939 or something. You can fact check me afterwards. And basically, Dr. Carl Jung, who I believe is the godfather of psychology, it was philosophy until Freud and Jung made it a science, a way of thought treating a person's ailments. And so Dr. Carl Jung was treating an alcoholic, and this guy like totally studied everything he needed to do, understood very clearly his condition, and was convinced that he was never going to drink again. And he would go back home and he would get all lit up. He'd come back to the doctor. And there's a story in the book where he's like pleading. He's like, "Oh, doctor, why is there nothing that I can do?" And the doctor's like, "No, like you're going to die unless you get locked up. Like there's no solution for you." He's like, "Please, please, please, what is there?" And he's like, "Well, there was one thing that happens since the dawn of time. And it's very, very difficult to explain, but I'll try to explain it the best I can." He says, people who've had spiritual experiences. Okay, spiritual experience is a profound alteration in one's reaction to life. Okay, this is described as having a psychic change. Okay, a revolution in one's thinking about themselves, others, and the world around them. So in order for you to survive this condition, you must experience this thing that is called a spiritual experience. And he's like, "Okay, well, how do I do it?" and then it talks about going into the reflection that the 12 steps has produced. Like, I don't believe it's necessary for a person to have to go through like a specifically 12-step program. It worked really well for me because I'm liking instructions and I can just follow the dots and then I just have the outcome. But he's describing this thing, a profound alteration in my reaction to life. And so that is the day to day. It's like, how do we produce that profound alteration? It's impossible to produce that in yourself. You can't like will yourself to not want to do these things anymore. We have to have something else to set our eyes onto.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the doctor's opinion, the doctor himself, Dr. William Silkworth, he wrote a letter to the world, which is in the big book. And he basically describes in this big book his experiences of like telling guys, like, your liver's going to explode if you walk out of here and take a drink. Like, you understand that. And the guy's like, yep, totally, 100%. Got it. Gonna die if I drink, for sure. Walks out, gets drunk, comes back in the hospital. And the doctor's like, this was like 40 minutes ago. And he's like, I couldn't, I don't know what happened. No explanation. This is called a strange mental blank spot, where a person cannot with sufficient force bring to mind the memory of suffering of just a week or even a day ago.
So suffering is not the number one motivation. It's not the fear. It's fear is not, people are not going to change because they're afraid.
Right. It's not, so like this blank spot is occurring in somebody who has an alcoholic mind. So there's no amount of knowledge or effort that can produce protection from taking that first drink. There's no willpower. There's no journaling process. There's no, I believe, no like just praying it away. Like, there has to be action. There has to be profound alteration or reaction to life. The doctor also says this, that there is this thing called the phenomenon of craving. These people were not drinking to overcome their circumstances. They were drinking to overcome a craving beyond their control. Men and women like to drink, essentially because they like the effects produced by alcohol, but this feeling is so elusive that after a time they cannot differentiate the true from the false. So I'm sitting the next events like, oh, I can quit any time. I couldn't differentiate the true from the false. I was chasing something that I could never catch up to, and I was delusional about that. And so it's easy for us to fall victim to this delusion because the book also says that we see other people drinking with impunity, meaning that they don't have the same consequences that we do. All right, there's other people working at that restaurant that I was telling you about. They're also doing drugs. They were drinking, they were partying, but they kept their job. What was so different about the way I use drugs and alcohol than the way they did? It's like if you saw people walking on water all the time, you would think you could try it too. Go ahead, let me try to step on this water real quick. Sploosh. What happened? You crawl out the pool. It must have been the shoes. Shoes too heavy. Kick the shoes off. Try it again. Sploosh. No, it was just the wind. Like, there's always some other excuse because we can't believe that actually there's something wrong with us.
So during this process and during your recovery, did you build a relationship with God?
So the big book asks us to choose a God that's going to work for us. The only contingency is that he's kind and loving and all forgiving. Everything else after that, like, it could be like the purple avatar. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, as long as it's a loving God, not like a punishing God. And I was like, okay, I can get on board with that.
Sounds like a Christian God to me, but
So there's a lot of similarities, okay? I mean, the origins, the Oxford groups, we can talk about. It's like history. But like in the higher power, so my sponsor had me write out all the things that I was powerless over, all the things that I could not do myself, and then just assign them as attributes to a higher power. And like that was going to be like the character building worksheet of like the God that I was going to worship. And so like and he was like,
so
okay,
giving your problems to God.
yes, giving your problems to God, but not everything is a problem.
Yeah.
Like job, like I loved my job. I was doing great. Things were good, but I still like needed to give that to God because it was not a thing that like I knew that if I like thought that I could control my job by working harder, then I would get high eventually.
Oh,
So
okay.
I needed to give over all things that I knew that I didn't have total and complete control over. And so
complete surrender.
total surrender. But it started with a checklist. And so I would just like get on my knees and I would just like recite the checklist like, okay, God, you have all the power of time and calendar. So if I'm running late to something, it's your will, like just like whatever, like a worksheet essentially. It just started that way.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that a person needs to have a total comprehension or understanding or belief in an actual God in order for this to work.
Okay.
I think you just need to practice.
Yeah.
And then once you're to practice, you'll see the outcomes. And the evidence will be undeniable. you'll eventually have to believe in something because it is clear there's a profound change and shift in your life that you did not produce yourself.
So what was the day to day like for you during this process of getting strength to be sober?
So the day to day ended up being like I had to go to a meeting in the morning, and then I had to make sure I attended my therapy, and then I had to make sure I cleaned the house. So it looked like obedience. It was obedience in every area of my life.
So good.
I had surrendered control
Yeah.
to this treatment center. I had surrendered control to like the program. I had surrendered control to like, even my family. Like I couldn't convince them to want to take me home. So it was just the state of just like I know that I'm not in control of anything, so I'm just gonna do what I'm told.
Do you think that's the root of addiction in general? I mean, I know obviously we're talking about drugs and alcohol, but we could be addicted to so many different things. Do you think that the root to addiction in general is control?
The root is selfishness, and not in like, oh, you're being selfish. The root is being concerned with self,
Yeah.
which is born out of fear, and fear is derived of our understanding of the world. And like I had said, like my understanding was about suffering being good, and that like I was never going to amount to anything unless I could just like work harder than other people. So like I was afraid of inadequacy. I was afraid of being alone because I was not accepted at a young age. So I had to like do the work to dig down and figure out what I was actually afraid of. And those I also had to turn into prayers. And then I had to like give that to a God that I didn't understand, fully comprehend, or even trust completely.
That's pretty powerful. So the day to day was overall what I'm hearing is it was learning how to surrender the fear, learning how to surrender the fear, learning how to surrender that control. And ultimately, it started dealing with the root of the identity,
Hmm.
of the brokenness in the identity,
Hmm.
and I feel like so many of us, we deal with the behavior, we go after the outward things, we try it on our own strength, say, okay, I'm not going to drink for 3 days, or I'm not going to, smoke this, or I'm not going, or look at this, or, you could be addicted to porn, and so in
Hmm.
your own strength, I'm gonna go 2 months without looking at the porn.
Hmm.
You're thinking about the behavior, but there's something broken inside of us. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That keeps us going back. And a lot of that, as I'm hearing, is surrendering. It's addressing that fear. So day to day, this started happening,
So the
and
first 9 months were
Oh, dang.
me
Okay.
doing
yeah, it didn't take three
like
weeks.
the first 9 months of my sobriety was like me doing the work, me
Yeah,
doing a lot of writing assignments, understanding about self, starting to pray to a thing I didn't understand, and just like creating this ritual and this habit, obedience, right? And once I had gone through the steps, well, up to step 9, then I need to make amends. So I had to go and like clear my side of the street, as they say. But what it actually was to me was like I was handing over the convict. I was like, this is his sentence. He did this, this, and this, and this. Is there anything for you to add? And then they would add on whatever it is that like this character had done to them, this person that I hated so much for
hmm
like hurting my mother and the people that I cared about. And after like handing him over, then they gave me an assignment. And one of my assignments, my father actually told me like, you need to stay in the gym because when you're in the gym, I know you stay sober. And like this is a man that like thought that like going to the gym was like for weak men who didn't have hard enough jobs during the day.
It's old school. It's old
Right.
school. You can get. Hmm.
So I've been given assignments like, okay, now do you do these things because this is what these people need me to do in order for us to like repair a relationship. Step 10 is taking constant inventory, which is like constant contact with other men who understand this process of self-reflection and can call me out on my own stuff. Because just like I don't know that I'm an addict, I'm also blind to the character defects.
Yeah,
It's the same nature. Like you said, they could be addicted to porn, but like not you know you're addicted to porn.
yeah.
Okay, so like 11 is then prayer meditation, whatever like form that comes in for you. But for me, it was like a daily reflection in the morning, asking God to direct my will and my thinking, and at nighttime was a reflection of like, how did I do? Was I selfish? Was I dishonest? Do I owe somebody an amends? Just like this very specific process is outlined, and then step 12 is to carry this message to other alcoholics.
Man, it's
And
powerful.
that is where the change happened. So I understood these things about this person that I hated more than anything else. And I tried my best to make amends for that, still never feeling good enough. But I finally had the chance to sit across the table from another man with the book in between us. And all I had to do was like read out of the book to him. And there was a light that would come on in his eyes. And I understood that he understood that there was something more powerful than us happening to us.
You know it. Recently, I've been talking about fascination, and we become addicted to the things that we fascinate about. The things that we meditate about, and I really feel like what happened during that process is that you started to developing a new fascination, and that fascination begins an addiction, and but the biggest fascination that I see happening during this time, during the 12 step process, was the fascination of helping someone else,
Yeah.
of
Yes.
helping someone else that's literally a reflection of who you used to be. It's like you're able to go back in time and look at your young self and look at yourself and be able to help yourself. And now I feel like from it was something that got birthed inside of you, it became a new addiction to now help people. I want you to kind of talk about, what the things you're doing today. Obviously, I know you have a desire now to open up a home and just do some things, man, to really
Mhm.
see men especially get free.
So I'm working on like maybe opening a sober living. I do a lot of work in the treatment centers as it is, like preaching like this very message to
That's great.
them. Um, Going to meetings, always finding guys to work with, has to be constant.
How many people have you brought through post up?
Probably in the hundreds,
Oh, wow.
In the hundreds,
which is nothing.
which is nothing.
The man who let
I
me
mean,
stay in his
it's
in
only
his treatment center.
365 days in a year.
But think about the guy who like let me stay in his treatment center for free. How many thousands has he helped? If I could help half as many as him, I would be. Then maybe you know what I'm saying. Like it just beside myself to imagine like how many more. Anyways, um, so you remember when I was talking about like I finally found a thing I could participate in where like all it took was my identity was a person who used drugs for me to like
Mhm.
belong.
Yeah.
And also like struggling because like I needed skill in order for me to be accepted by this thing. But then finally I found like sports and athleticism or working out that wasn't the same as like sports and athleticism where I could just like apply force and see outcomes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay, so like now I finally found something that was both.
that's great.
And I don't say that like I don't think that I am addicted to like working with others. It's just the clearest purpose for my life.
Yeah,
And like anything else I know is noise
yeah.
and can be distracted by. But
Mhm.
like this is the one thing that I have like built in and like basically an automation for my life because I know it produces outcomes. I know where I belong. It's because of my identity as a
Yeah,
person who is recovered that qualifies me for this great purpose.
yeah,
The identity is what qualifies me, not my works.
yeah,
Because I could have never gotten a guy completely through the 12 steps
yeah,
and still have great solid sobriety. In fact, I know a lot of men who have been working with guys for years, haven't gotten somebody all the way through the 12 steps, and like they themselves are sober and like getting married and like having families and
yeah.
like have this big beautiful life. So it's not an outcome based
It's good.
program.
Yeah,
It's about who you are and what are you doing on a daily basis defines who you are. Your activities, your actions, what you do is who you are.
man. We're gonna be closing soon, but before we wrap up this episode, first of all, I want to know who is Cody Carrier today. Did I say your name right?
Yeah.
Who is Cody Carrier today compared to Cody, in this story that you shared?
Cody in the story was an extraordinary pain, just on a day to day basis. I'm a free man today. Thank you. And not just like, I'm not like free specifically from like drugs and alcohol, but like I'm free from that like tightness that wound me up, like that I inherited in that old belief system of like needing to suffer. Like, I don't need to suffer anymore. I'm allowed to have friendships. I can trust that they're not going to just die. Like, I can trust that, like you guys are good people to be around. And I'm invited in this space simply because of my identity.
That's it.
And so I'm a man of peace today. I get to experience what it's like to be a kind person, what it's like to be a person who doesn't hurt others. I understand what it feels like to have capacity for patience when before I was tortured by my impatience.
Yeah,
And so I'm blessed, and the greatest gift that I have is to be a witness of what like a loving God can actually do in the lives of others who I'm fortunate enough to be able to touch.
Two things before we wrap. The first thing is I want you to talk to the person who is right now going through this type of addiction, or they haven't made it to they haven't mustered up the courage, or maybe even the want to. There's people that are so broken right now, and they don't want to get better. Like they don't want to get help. I want you to talk to that person, and I also want you to talk to someone else that has a relationship. There's a family member that was you.
Hmm.
How can you help them? You know. But first, I want you to talk to the person that is in that place. What's the first thing that they can do that you believe that can, the first step. We talk about in the moment. What's the first step that they can do day to day to get into that journey?
What I'll say to you is your assessment of things may be wrong and that the solution may be unseen. So when you do come upon an offer of help, I want you to understand that you can't see how it's going to play out, but if you trust it, it can work. And it doesn't have to be you that gets you out. You can ask for help. And there is another way of life, no matter how dark it might be. And also, if it's just not that dark and you're just struggling on a day to day basis, I'm going to tell you the solution, no matter where you are on that scale, is going to be community. It's going to be finding people who understand you.
Yeah, that's
And so
great.
I encourage you to find any kind of, there's so much infrastructure. Find a meeting that relates to whatever it is that you're suffering from. And if you don't even know what you're suffering from, I want you to go ask. I want you to go ask other people what they see. Because I guarantee that if you're in a suffering state, you're just not seeing something. And that something is going to be the solution. It's going to be the way out.
So good. Now I want you to talk to the person that has a brother right now, or a sister, or a father, or a mother, or a cousin, a friend, and they're ruining their lives, and they don't know what to do. They're trying things, and it's just not working. What's some practical things that they can do?
If you have somebody in your life who is suffering from any kind of addiction, suffering from any kind of grief, pain, whatever it is that they're going through, and you feel powerless over being able to help them, I want you to realize that you are, and it's not going to be through your own willpower that you can solve this thing for them. The answer is the same. I want you to go find somebody else who's suffering from the same thing because they can help you see what you can't see. What my experience has been for those who are in relationships with alcoholics and addicts will then become very addicted to trying to get ahead of them and manage them and soften the blow and help them up. And you participating in the game, you're playing right into the hands of the addiction.
Mm.
Everything that you do to console a person who is suffering from addiction brings them further away from the solution. I want you to stop. I want you to stop enabling the thing that is trying to kill your son, your husband, your mom, your sister, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. That desire you have to help them, alcoholism is going to feed on that desire. So I need you to, first of all, protect yourself and go find somebody else who's had to deal with this problem before so that you don't try to do this thing alone. Because up until this point in time, if you're still involved with somebody who's using drugs and alcohol, you're going to need some help because you may not have seen yet that it has consumed your life because it so easily can. And hope you find some joy and some happiness.
Man, that's so good. That's so good, man. Um, Man, I just want you to man, just to pray. I want you to pray. Just kind of over what we're talking about, you know. You could just cover what we've been talking about to the people that need God to move in their life right now.
I want to pray that there's space. There's space in the lives of the people who are listening right now who can feel that pause or given a chance to just think about the words and the things that they might have heard today, I pray that the reflection can come to everyone who's listening to this and find some healing, some understanding. And I also pray that the path is lit up for them. The path of their purpose is lit up for them, and that they can release whatever it is that is strangling them and strangling their happiness, and to understand that they are not alone and that there is a path forward. And sometimes that path forward might even be sitting still. And so I pray for everyone to have that peace and that moment of stillness, that they can gain that deep understanding of what it is that they need or may not need to heal. Amen.
Amen. Amen, man. I appreciate you, bro. Just being transparent, being vulnerable, sharing your story. It's, we just, man, encourage you to keep going. Let's bring another few hundred through. This world needs you. Our society, our culture, this country, this nation, the people of this generation. We need you. We need you. And so I appreciate that you're a bright light to so many. And now you're sharing the evil and the torment and the hard times, the tribulations. Now you're allowing God to turn that around for your good and using that as a weapon to bring healing to so many people, man. I feel like there's people right now that are going through some things, and I feel like God wants to do the same with you. He wants to turn all the disappointments, the rejections, the failures, the mistakes. He wants to turn it around so that you can be a blessing to so many people that are going through what you're going through right now. So I want to encourage you to don't give up, keep going, do not quit. I believe that God's best days are ahead of you, and He's going to use everything that you've been through for your good. Listen, I want you guys to share this show, share this episode. If you have family members, if you know anybody that's going through anything like this, please share this with them. Forward this to anybody that this is going to be a blessing to. Make sure you guys like this video. Subscribe to this. We're also doing something called listener support, and we're giving that opportunity just for our people that are following us, that are supporting what we're doing, to donate, to give, into what we're doing. We are raising up money to continue to pay for our production and our editors and everything that we're trying to do. And so we appreciate your support in advance. Once again, thank you, Cody. Can we just give him a round of applause? Thank you, bro. Man, I appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Join us again for another episode of In the Moment. We'll see you next time.